I'm grateful to my honourable friend, the member for Blackpool South, for securing this debate. And Mr Dowd, it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. I pay tribute to my honourable friend, not just for the words that he has put forward in this debate, but also the hard work I know he does outside of this chamber to fight against anti-Semitism. I've listened to and I'm grateful for the contributions, the interventions that were made by my honourable and right honourable friends here. And I'll try to cover as many of the points as I am able to. Firstly, let me put on record that the UK is a proud friend of Israel. And indeed, I think it's, I'm proud to say, and I think it's fair for the record, to put on record that prior to my ministerial appointment, I was a member of Conservative Friends of Israel. But my personal feelings aside, the UK government's position is that we are happy to, proud to, stand up when we feel that Israel faces bias and unreasonable criticism from international institutions or indeed from anywhere else. And we agree with my honourable friend, the member for Blackpool South, that item 7 is just such an example of that bias. As he said in his speech, item 7 is unique. It is the only item on the Council's agenda that singles out an individual country for scrutiny. And for many of the reasons that he mentions, we feel this is wrong. Not only do we feel this is wrong, we believe it hinders the work of the human rights agenda that the UN seeks to pursue and actually disincentivises full cooperation in pursuit of that agenda. So rather than encouraging Israel to engage with the mechanisms and the expertise that the Human Rights Council has to offer, we believe that item 7 alienates Israel. And I know this is an issue which has been brought up with me directly, and it is clearly one that a number of honourable and right honourable members in the House of Commons agree with. We want to see Israel engaged fully with the human rights machinery, and as I say, we feel item 7 dissuades them from doing so. And as such, item 7 damages the efforts to advance dialogue. It damages the efforts to advance stability. It damages the efforts to build mutual trust and understanding between the Israeli and the Palestinian people. And therefore, it damages the prospect of a sustainable, meaningful, peaceful two-state solution. Which is why, at the 40th session of the Human Rights Council in March 2019, the UK adopted a principled approach which saw us vote against all resolutions tabled under item 7. And our vote sent a clear message, a clear signal, that the UK stands against the implicit supposition that Israel's conduct deserves a unique focus and therefore a greater scrutiny than any other country in the world. The UK will continue to push for the abolition of agenda item 7. We should make it clear, and I want to make it clear, that we will continue to support the scrutiny of Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories in the Human Rights Council, so long as that scrutiny is justified, fair and proportionate and is not proposed under agenda item 7, which is why, by definition, we feel that agenda item 7 should be abolished. My honourable friend asked, and he spoke about issues which had been moved from agenda item 7 to other agenda items. And I do want to touch upon that because I do think it is an important distinction. It goes to the point I'm saying about the UK is happy to support the scrutiny of countries, and that does include Israel, as long as it's done fairly and proportionately. So that is why, when the Palestinian Authority made the decision in 2019 to move resolution items from item 7 to item 2, bearing in mind that item 2 is an item that looks at a range of actions of a range of states, the UK engaged with that resolution in good faith, and we did so closely with our international partners. We did ultimately choose to abstain on that resolution, keeping with the position we took in 2018 when we abstained with a resolution that, to create a commission of inquiry into Gaza protests. Now, in that instance, we did not support the investigation into violence that refused to call explicitly for an investigation into the action of non-state actors such as Hamas, a point that my honourable friend made. Our expectation is that accountability must be pursued impartially, fairly, and in an even-handed manner. And this government has also chosen not to support resolutions at the Human Rights Council where they include provisions that went beyond our broader policies. In 2016 and 2017, alongside other European states, we abstained on a Human Rights Council resolution which called for a creation of databases of companies involved in settlement activities in the Palestinian territories. As we said in our explanation of vote at the time, we do not believe that establishing such a database was a helpful measure, and it did not consider it appropriate for the UN Human Rights Council to take on this role. The UK has not cooperated with the process of compiling this database, nor have we encouraged UK companies to do so. The forthcoming session, as my honourable friend says, the 46th session of the Human Rights Council, is currently ongoing. The government will continue to vote against all items under item 7 resolutions. The Palestinian delegation have listened to our concerns and have moved some resolutions from item 7 to item 2, meaning there will now be 2 Palestinian tabled resolutions under item 7 compared with the 4 that were under item 7 back in 2018. They've also merged the 2 items, consolidated the 2 items, reducing the overall number of resolutions focused on the Israeli-Palestinian situation. Negotiations on this resolution are ongoing. And as I said, we have committed to enter into negotiations around the text of such resolutions in good faith. Our blanket opposition is to items under resolutions under item 7, rather than more broadly about resolutions to do with Israel and the OPTs. So we will therefore decide on how we vote based purely on the merits of the resolution and on the final text that is put before the Council. Now, some critics... I'm happy to...
And forgive me, I'm sorry to get cut in just as he's making a very important point, but just to get clarity here, I understand the argument that he's making around engaging with the text that's moved from a permanent item 7 agenda, into item 2. But could he confirm, if we voted against, say, text that singles out Israel for criticism without mentioning Hamas or Islamic Jihad when it appears in item 7, surely it's the morally right and logically consistent thing to do to vote against it when it appears under item 2 or wherever it appears. And will he commit to voting against text exactly like that when it appears in under item 2?
Can I just remind the Minister we've about 3 minutes left?
My right honourable friend makes a very good point. I think it's worth, with your indulgence, Mr. Dowd, just to explore that a bit. Agenda item 7, the UK government has a principled opposition to, and therefore had voted against agenda item 7 and the contents thereof because of the nature of agenda item 7. We recognise that moving away from agenda item 7 is a positive step, and therefore our commitment is to engage with the specific text. It may well be the case that the final text is still one that the UK government finds unacceptable, but that decision will be based on the specific text itself rather than our in-principled opposition to item 7 as a tool of specific and unfair criticism of Israel. Those negotiations are ongoing, and therefore I'm not in a position to provide him with the assurances that he seeks. Mr. Dowd, it should be recognised that the close and strong bilateral relationship between the UK government and Israel gives us the opportunity to speak out when we feel Israel's actions warranted, as we have done so with regards to our concerns about annexation and indeed the demolition of settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories. But it is also the government's position that we will continue to support and advocate for balanced resolutions in UN bodies. We are committed to making progress towards a two-state solution. Resolutions that politicise UN bodies or risk hardening the position of either side do little to advance peace or mutual understanding. We believe that negotiations will only succeed when they are conducted between Israelis and Palestinians, supported by the international community, and we will continue to work with international bodies, regional bodies, European partners, the United States, of course with Israel and the Palestinian leadership, to advance dialogue, to encourage joint working, and to find a permanent, peaceful solution to this conflict which has gone on for too long.
Thank you. Thank you for your